What? Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome.
What is going on, guys? Welcome to the Underdog Drafter Party Week 12 edition. I'm Jake, here with my lovely co-host, one of the best football writers around, Ryan Heath. We'll be drafting some Battle Royale teams tonight, talking about our favorite scroll down options, and discussing contest-specific strategy throughout the show. If you guys have any pressing Week 12 questions, we can also get to those once we start drafting. But Ryan, with that out of the way, how are you doing this week, man?
I'm doing great, man. I was pretty down on this slate, but I just told you before the show started, as of like probably 2-3 hours ago, I'm in on this slate. I'm excited. I'm going to do a bunch of volume and we're going to win some money. Let's do it, Jake.
Yeah, I love the confidence there, Ryan. As always, we will start out going position by position, breaking down the slate from that perspective, mostly just talking about top values and how we view each position. Then we will look at contests, and then we'll get into drafts, which is the best time for us to, answer any questions, interact with everybody in chat. But let's get into it, Ryan. Quarterback this week, I don't really love the top options. Jaden Daniels is a guy who has, I think, significant volume concerns. He may not be healthy. Kyler Murray is a guy who I'm very interested in for DFS purposes, where it doesn't look like he's going to garner much ownership, but QB2 here does feel a bit expensive. Obviously, as you can see, I am still drafting a bit courtesy of our lovely tools at bestballoverlay.com. If you guys want to be able to see your exposures, want to be able to see your combinatorial exposures, totals, spreads, weather while you're drafting, check out bestballoverlay.com. Use promo code PARTY. Mahomes at QB3 feels overvalued. Jared Goff at QB4 is pretty tough when he probably won't have more than 20, 25 completions. Obviously, we saw him keep their foot on the gas last week. I feel like I have a lot more interest in some of these later round options, but Ryan, I'm curious how you see the quarterback position this week.
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same with you. The only guy at the top I'm kind of interested in, like you, is going to be Kyler, just to get some exposure to that game, getting it through stacking him with Marvin Harrison Jr. I will force myself to do some of that just because that's the price and that's what you have to pay. But yeah, all these top four guys, I would just rather have Anthony Richardson kind of straight up is how I'm playing it. So yeah, I am into Richardson. Mayfield, I like in theory. I like him a lot more if I think that Mike Evans is going to be a full go. My plan right now is to just wait until Sunday morning to see if we get additional news on Evans. It sounded very good early in the week, but it sounded less and less clear as we've gone on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just not going to lock in that exposure right now, and I'm just going to draft a bunch of Mayfield Evans sacks on Sunday morning. If we get positive updates at like 9 a.m. or whatever, I'll just be sitting there and drafting Mayfield and Evans until then. Aside from that, if we scroll down a bit, there are some options I like quite a bit. I think Geno is fine. Not super jazzed about his upside, but I think he works. I do really like Tua Tagovailoa in this spot. We'll talk about Tyreek Hill when we get to the wide receivers, but really like this game and stacking it up. Obviously, Achane projects incredibly well as well. So Tua is kind of going to be one of my more frequent scroll downs, and same with Drake May for similar reasons. Just getting exposure to that game. Don't know that you want to stack him with anybody in BR outside of Hunter Henry. But yeah, that's how I'm approaching quarterback.
Yeah, I think in 12-team drafts, you could argue for guys like maybe Kendrick Bourne, Kayshon Boutte with Drake May, but I'm not super eager about it. I do really like Drake May as a scroll down. As you guys can see, I've taken him on about 15% of my team so far. I think this game has sneaky upside for sure. Ryan, before we move on to running back, we actually got a great quarterback question in the chat. Someone asked Richardson or Stafford. All touchdowns are 6-point touchdowns. It certainly makes it closer. I think I would still lean AR this week. AR is our QB2 right now by Underdog Fantasy Points in our projections over on FantasyPoints.com. And I mean, there's just so much lining up for him in terms of they really contoured the offense to a skill set last week. He tied for the single most QB rush attempts minus kneel downs last week with 10. It feels like things are really lining up for AR. So I do think I prefer him over Stafford even in a 6-point passing touchdown league. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you. And I mean, Aaron Glenn defenses since the start of 2022 have allowed 86 rushing yards per game to mobile quarterbacks in like an 8-game sample. It's just an incredible spot for AR. He's been twice as efficient when he's not been pressured this season. And the Lions rank bottom 5, bottom 6 in all of our pressure rate stats. So yeah, AR is a conviction type of play for me this week. Both in BR and on the main slate. I don't even care how popular he's going to get. I'm still going to play him and find ways to get unique with him. I say that in BR, stacking with Josh Downs. Downs is one way in BR to get more unique. His ADP is well below 34. So yeah, that's another angle I like there.
Yeah, Downs has had back-to-back wide receiver 1 finishes in his last 2 games with AR, which I think is pretty encouraging there. If you wanted to poke holes in Richardson, I mean, he's just been ridiculously inconsistent as a passer. And, there's pretty significant injury risk there. I believe we've seen him leave, 3 games across 8 or 9 starts. That's, it's not great, but I mean, geez, like you said, Ryan, I mean, everything's just lining up for AR this week. So he's certainly a guy that I like. Also love to see it. Carlos Hernandez almost took down a tournament last week. Can't believe I wasn't trying this over the year. Yeah. The best part about Battle Royale is that it is absurdly soft compared to DFS. You can't play like in DFS. If you're a high-end player with, a borderline unlimited budget, you can just get into every contest. Not really possible in Battle Royale, given the time element, given the fact that you need to manually draft in order to correlate your teams. It just makes things a lot softer. I think Underdog also just has a lot newer fantasy players compared to a site like DraftKings. We love the edges here in Battle Royale, and there are generally some glaring ones. Moving on to running back here, I felt like the top 3 running backs were pretty set in terms of CNC, Achane, and Joe Mixon. Ryan, I'm curious now that we know Brock Purdy is out, Brandon Allen starting for the San Francisco 49ers. How does that impact how you view these top 3 guys? Because I think you could argue CMC should be drafted as late as RB3, certainly not later than that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I would rank him as the RB3 with Purdy out. And what that means is I'm just not going to be getting exposure to him at the 101 until Sunday morning, which at that point, if he's still the 101 and it's like I have to draft him at 101 to get any CMC, that'll do it. But yeah, I expect the ADP to drop. I expect you to be able to get him at the 102, at the 103. So that's what I'm going to be trying to do. And I'll be taking Achane 101 kind of as my default guy. Yeah. This is off of the running back conversation, but I do also think at 101, this might be an okay week to mix in like some reaches, just to get like some more unique teams. Cause I really like a lot of these wide receivers at the top, just in terms of their ceiling, and drafting them at the total other end of the draft where there's other players available on the turn is going to give you more unique combinations even without having to scroll down a lot. So I think just with all the running backs being kind of bunched up at the top in ADP, this is a good week to kind of mix it up like that, even from the 101 some of the time.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to mix it up beyond the top 3 running backs a ton from the 101, but certainly want to echo what you just said. I think in those first 2 rounds, it makes a lot of sense to sort of mix up those exposures because we do see 2 pretty clear tiers in terms of these top 3 running backs and these top 4 wide receivers. I do think this is, in a lot of weeks, we've had a ton of depth at running back. This week, not necessarily the case. There's a clear best value right now in Kareem Hunt at RB9. I was ripping a ton of drafts before cashing points, and I could pretty often, at least in wildcat drafts, get Kareem Hunt round 3, round 4. Incredible value there. I think, once you step up and buy in either to the main battle royale or especially in like the fullback dive or the bomb, you're going to have people picking Kareem Hunt pretty consistently in the second round. Still very comfortable with it. I think there's a strong argument. He's the RB4 on this slate behind those top 3 options. And yeah, our projections reflect that he is the RB4 in our projections ahead of Josh Jacobs, Kenny Walker, Gibbs, Connor, all those guys. Ryan, anyone else stand out to you as a scroll down later round option here?
Yeah, I guess the only scroll down I'm super in love with this week is Ramondre Stevenson.
Yeah.
He has just been getting all of the high value touches. He has 11 out of 13 running back touches inside the 10-yard line over the past 4 weeks. The Patriots have been staying in games. You haven't had like the rushing efficiency on the ground, but that's not what you're looking for here. You're looking for the multiple touchdown upside, and Stevenson, just with the offense he's on and the role he has, I think is kind of the only guy who offers that in this scroll down range at this point. Yeah, I mean, I'd take him straight up over like a Tyrone Tracy, maybe even over a Jonathan Taylor in this matchup for Taylor is pretty rough. So yeah, expect to have a lot of Stevenson exposure as a scroll down. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I can start to talk myself into Javonte Williams on like a couple teams if the Broncos just get up a ton. We've seen Williams have big games. With Sean Payton, we know all he needs to do is be the first guy to break off a long run, and then he's playing ahead of everybody else for the rest of the game. I don't love it, honestly. That might be more of like a 12-team take. But yeah, it's kind of Stevenson and nobody else for me.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. I think, there might be some juice for Pollard with Spears out. Obviously, the usage has just been insane. He's generally been falling under his expectation, though. Aaron Jones only had a 55% snap share last week. Tyrone Tracy has some serious concerns in terms of overall offensive competency, as you already noted. Jonathan Taylor with a tough matchup. So we can move on to wide receiver here. Tyler had a question. Why does Jake stink? Ryan, what are your thoughts on that? I know my cage match record certainly infers that I stink. What do you think about Tyler's lovely comment there?
I mean, he shouldn't be asking why Jake stinks. Yeah, outside of cage match, I think Jake is beating me at absolutely everything this year, just in terms of DFS, in terms of underdog winning. So yeah, I should probably be going after me, Tyler, instead of Jake. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to come on here and trash on my guy. I apologize.
Oh, you totally can, Ryan. I will still be a gracious host regardless of what you say about me. But Tyler, we've been talking about having more guests on. I've been trying to peer pressure Neil Orfield week after week after week. He's always busy on Fridays. Can you believe that, Ryan? That guy, I mean, very popular guy.
That is ridiculous.
Loves
Imagine
going out.
doing anything other than drafting underdog teams on Friday night.
Completely insane.
What a life.
My Friday and Saturday nights are all about getting ready for Sunday. Guys like Neil Orfield already won a Millionaire Maker. You can tell he's gotten a little lazy in his prep. Can't seem to hop on the show. But Tyler, I'm sure we'd love to have you on. So definitely feel free to DM me on Twitter, and maybe we could work out a drafter party appearance for you, because really enjoyed talking shop during cage match. But let's talk wide receivers here. This top end of wide receivers, I think you could poke holes in all of these guys, but I do feel pretty comfortable, end of round 1, beginning of round 2, taking Amon-Ra, Nico, Jefferson, Tyreek. I think Tyreek is pretty clearly my favorite, especially relative to ADP. The upside here is just incredible. Over 30 DraftKings points in almost a third of his games with Tua. Schematic matchup is great against a New England defense that has been man heavy. They're also giving up a lot deep, and we know that's Tyreek's game. Sort of been waiting, this last month or so for the right spot to play Tyreek. This absolutely feels like it, Ryan. Do you have anything to add on these high-end wide receivers? And then anyone else who sticks out to you? I think the mid-range is pretty tough at wide receiver this week.
Yeah, all these top-end guys are kind of classic, quote unquote, like great GPP plays in like a main slate context. So yeah, I'm happy to just be taking shots on all of them in BR here. Nico Collins, I especially want to call out. It's kind of difficult to guess what the Texans will do in games with Collins active. They've been top 5 in pass rate over expectation. The Titans on the other side of that have been a top 5 pass funnel if you just remove like the Malik Willis game back in week 2 or whatever that was. So that Houston Tennessee game could shoot out more than we're expecting. Really like I guess here's like a sneaky kind of mini stack here is Nico Collins, and then Calvin Ridley as a scroll down is very fun to me. But yeah, I mean, as you were talking about with Tyreek Hill, this is like the spot for him. Aside from all the man coverage schematic stuff, the Patriots also generally have not gone too high heavy very often at all this season. Basically, every team has gone too high heavy against the Dolphins when Tua has been healthy. It's so funny if you go in the data suite and just split out their games in like the coverage matrix offense section. It's like 70%, 70%, 70%. Tyreek has had 2 games with Tua where the defense has played less than 70% too high. And he averages like 10.5 targets and over 19 fantasy points per game in those 2 games this season. So yeah, this is just the perfect spot for Tyreek. I want Tua with him on like a decent percentage of that, but also as a one-off, he's great. As you were saying about the mid-range, I agree this is difficult. I like Metcalf's fine, but he just doesn't stick out above anybody else that much. Evans, incredible schematic matchup, incredible individual matchup. Deontay Banks has been getting absolutely destroyed all season. So I love the idea of Evans. I need to know if he's healthy, though. I'm less confident on that than I was 48 hours ago. So kind of waiting before I get all my exposure there. But yeah, other than that, kind of scrolling down here, JSN is going to pop from like a projection standpoint, but he has kind of gone back to this underneath role with DK Metcalf back in the lineup, especially if you look at his actual intended targets, like his first read targets. He was at like a 7.4 ADOT last week. And I mean, it works for his medium projection. Like the Cardinals are funneling everything underneath and into the slot, but doesn't work as well for like upside to win you a tournament. Outside of like he's going to catch multiple touchdowns and you're stacking this game and you're betting on the game environment. But yeah, other than that, I like Harrison quite a bit. Josh Downs, we already called out. Calvin Ridley, I already called out as my preferred like kind of serious scroll down. So that's pretty much the wide receiver position for me.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. Calvin Ridley's stats over the last month have just been awesome. And I believe I think Graham said this on Cashing Points, that in his last 2 games with Will Levis, his average depth of target has been 19 yards down the field, which is just absolutely insane. So you're going to get a ton of volatility with Ridley, but for a guy who's going undrafted, I mean, we know the ceiling is massive. I also wanted to shout out CeeDee Lamb. I mean, I know that this offense might end up being a disaster, but from a projection standpoint, he is projecting very, very well for us, right around top 5 wide receiver in terms of raw projection. The volume should be really good. Part of me does worry that, a guy like CD who, it makes a lot of sense for him to want to protect his body here. Cowboys season is over. Maybe he just sort of takes his foot off the gas a bit. I know he's dealt with a couple injuries over the last few weeks. So there's that, but I think at an ADP of 24, you're getting a pretty solid discount there. Let's move on to
ideal schematic matchup for CD as well. The lot more single high, a lot more blitzing that Dan Quinn has been doing recently. So yeah, there's a path for CD for sure.
Yeah, that's a really good note. All right, moving on to tight end here. I think, Travis Kelce and Brock Bowers are both pretty straightforward. They're both just great plays. Beyond that, I think that's where things get pretty interesting. I certainly have some interest in McBride, mostly in Arizona, Seattle game stacks, which I obviously have a lot of interest in. I know that we noted that on Cashing Points as being like a really great game environment to attack. Not necessarily a great environment to attack from like a one-off perspective. Scroll downs are a little tricky, but I think Hunter Henry and TJ Hawkinson really stand out. No Josh Oliver this week for Minnesota. That seemed to be what was keeping TJ Hawkinson off the field. He's only been at about a 55% route share since he returned from injury. And the coaches have acknowledged that that's largely just because they love Josh Oliver as a run blocker. With no Josh Oliver, Hawkinson could return to something similar to what we saw, in terms of his usage last year when he averaged about 15 expected fantasy points per game. Ryan, anything to add on the tight end position?
No, Hawkinson's a great call. I kind of missed him on this slate. So yeah, he's a great scroll down here. I would say I'm just kind of not that interested in George Kittle with Brandon Allen at quarterback, especially at the tight end 4. Honestly, if I get past McBride, I'm starting to look to Hunter Henry and TJ Hawkinson quite a bit. Kate Otten has a pretty difficult schedule adjusted matchup. I really like Evans' matchup significantly more than Otten's this week. Jonnu Smith, I have like schematic concerns. It's like the opposite side of the Tyreek Hill coin where it's perfect for him. It's kind of the worst possible for Jonnu. Obviously, Jonnu's role has been great and he's been playing pretty well to my eye too. So hard to take like too much issue with. But yeah, I really like being able to get probably a very big ownership discount between the tight end 6 versus the tight end 8 to just flip to Hunter Henry on all of those kind of game stack builds instead of Jonnu. So yeah, but no like huge crazy stands at tight end for me this week.
Certainly like that call. I think the toughest part with Kittle is that Trent Williams is looking like a game time decision. If we knew Trent Williams wasn't playing, I would basically have no interest in Kittle because they're going to keep him into pass block a lot. If Trent Williams does play, I think, Kittle is a bit more viable. He'll certainly run more routes, but this offense could just be a complete disaster with Brandon Allen starting. So yeah, Kittle's a tough one. Just not a guy I feel very comfortable taking at ADP. I think I feel a bit better taking Cade Otton, even though the on paper matchup is tough. I know Graham Barfield mentioned this morning when we were talking projections that the Giants really haven't played any notably good tight ends here. So that might be part of the reason Cade Otton's schedule adjusted matchup isn't looking great. But without further ado, we can get into some drafts here. If you guys have any questions on the week 12 slate, whether it's DFS, Battle Royale, start sit, definitely feel free to drop them in chat. We'll do our best to get to everything while we rip some drafts here. We can start off with a Wildcat. I will say they did dial back contest selection a bit from last week. There was a good amount of overlay. Thankfully, they did keep all the high-end stuff the same. Dog Bowl still the Dog Bowl. Battle Royale, Wildcat, all still the same. Same thing with the Bomb. Fullback dive. Squib Kick lives, so we still have $3 12-person drafts, which is great. After that, pretty dialed back, mostly just early only, late only, standard deposit kingdom, Badge Bros Brawl contest. I don't think I have much to say on any of those, but let's start off with a Wildcat draft here. While we wait for this to fill, Ryan, a couple questions in the chat. Somebody asked, will DJ Moore finally break out this week? Going to have to throw quick screens to avoid the blitz. Yeah, I mean, DJ Moore's ADOT was basically 0 last week, so that is an argument for him against the blitz. The problem is that Rome Odunze has actually been Caleb Williams' favorite target against the blitz this season. Odunze also had a 32% target share this week, which was the highest by any Bears wide receiver in any game this season. Maybe that signals a bit of a breakout with a new offensive coordinator calling the shots. I think, in Battle Royale, obviously you're not getting to any of these Bears wide receivers. I think in DFS, Odunze is a little interesting at 4,800, but I mean, the game environment here is brutal. 39 total. Do you have anything to add there, Ryan?
No, you pretty much hit every point. I actually just the Fantasy Points account just dropped a video where I kind of go through all those points you just brought up, and like in the data suite showing you how to find them. So if you guys are interested in that, go check it out on the Fantasy Points Twitter. But yeah, I guess kind of the argument for DJ Moore is just a lot of pressure coming, getting the ball out quick, as David kind of laid out. I don't know that that's like a huge upside type of role though. Like it definitely helps his floor from like a weekly redraft perspective. I guess you're okay with that. I'm never going to complain about a guy seeing 4 design targets in a week. Yeah. But yeah, my excitement is definitely more for Odunze.
Yeah, I am right there with you. We drew the 103 in this draft. Pretty good spot to be in because we're guaranteed one of these top running backs. So I think we pretty clearly go Mixon here. Do you have any thoughts on how we want to, what kind of stack we want to build towards for this first team here in the Wildcat?
I mean, I think you take Mixon and you hope that one of those top receivers drops to you, which I've been finding has been pretty unlikely. It seems like the top 7 is, or actually no, Tyreek's only 9 ADP. I guess I forgot. Oh, because Gibbs is up there. Okay, right. Probably not drafting any Jahmyr Gibbs at an ADP of 5. I totally forgot that he was up there.
The market has come way up on these Detroit running backs, and I mean, I get it from the perspective that Detroit is obviously capable in this spot against Indianapolis of scoring 42 points again, and both of these running backs, or at least one of them, would probably post you a tournament winning score. The problem is they're still splitting backfield XFP almost evenly. David Montgomery's caught 21 passes this year. Jahmyr Gibbs has only caught 23. Montgomery's getting the lean inside the 10. Gibbs has been way more efficient. It really does just feel like a guessing game. I know that was a pair of guys. Scott Barrett was asking me in my Twitter DMs, just now, about maybe adding to the slate breakdown. And to me, it's just like, well, I mean, you can kind of just flip a coin, right? It is really hard to pick.
Yeah, no, it's impossible. It's like at least now we know that Montgomery is just getting all the goal line work, but it doesn't help you because Gibbs can break off a 50-yard run and be the one to score twice in any given week. But yeah, I think we go Tyreek here. That's got to be my least favorite Scott Barrett DM is pick between David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs this week.
Oh, I got an even worse one. That was, can you write up Brandon Allen, which I was not excited to receive that request, but gotta serve the CEO best you can. Brandon Allen is a really tough assessment. Obviously, we're not getting to him in any of these battle royale drafts, but Shanahan's quarterbacks have always scored a lot of fantasy points, so that's really encouraging, right? Problem is Brandon Allen probably isn't very good. I sort of said he's probably like 2022 Jimmy Garoppolo, but slightly worse. Jimmy Garoppolo averaged about 16 DraftKings fantasy points per game in that season. That does make Brandon Allen a little bit interesting. And yeah, it's just, I mean, it's going to be really tough for them if Trent Williams is out. We're coming up on pick 15 here. This is where things get interesting. I think if we could get Kelsey here, that would be awesome. I'm really surprised to see Trey McBride go that early. I'm okay with Bowers. What do you think here? I think it'd be pretty easy to start building out our stack after we take Bowers.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Yeah. Generally pro going best player available, especially when we get a guy who, falls slightly from a 13 ADP to pick 15. And I do think there's a pretty notable drop off in tight end, especially with the top three off the board. So far we got Mixon, Hill, Brock Bowers. We are 6 picks away from our next selection. Ryan, what direction do you want to go with this team? I'll take a peek at quarterback here.
So it's easy to go Tua on any Tyreek team.
It is.
We've got, let's see, Mixon. So like Ridley is like a potential scroll down guy too.
I've been taking a lot of Drake May on these Tyreek Hill teams. I think there's a decent chance that the Miami offense could go off and May could still outscore Tua. I mean, we've seen like huge games from Tyreek, from Waddle, from Achane, and Tua only gets you 22, 23, 24 fantasy points. That's not really going to push you to a tournament winning score. I just don't want to end up with too much May, given that his ADP is so low, but I do think he's a pretty strong play this week.
Yeah, no, ignore the ADP. He's completely I just ignore quarterback ADP after, honestly, kind of in general on Underdog. Yeah. I think that's the position the field gets wrong by far the most often. But yeah, May should be no worse than like the QB 7 or maybe QB 8 on this slate. In my opinion.
I think I'm in a similar spot. And the nice thing with May is you can play him naked because he's run for over 35 yards in about half his starts. And you can also stack him with Hunter Henry. Obviously, we wouldn't be doing that on this team, given that we already drafted Brock Bowers, but I certainly like that. If we plan on going May, then we're probably just looking at, roughly best player available for these next few selections.
It's probably just Kareem Hunt.
Yeah, it probably is Kareem Hunt. You can see this is sort of our prototype rankings. We will drop full rankings of CSV that you can upload straight into Underdog Saturday around noon. So keep an eye out for that in the Fantasy Points Discord, the Underdog Battle Royale channel. Free to join, by the way, so you can get those rankings for free. We did lose out on Kareem Hunt. I definitely like Jacobs a lot more now that we know Brandon Allen is starting. We don't need to go running back here. But our favorite scroll down is Ramondre. So probably don't want to take him if we want to make this a May stack. Should we just go Jacobs, or would you prefer receiver here?
No, I think we can go Jacobs.
Yeah, and he would be our highest ranked player overall. So I think that is the right move. I mean, we'll be unique enough with Drake May in the spot. So yeah, let's grab Josh Jacobs, 4 picks away from our round 5 selection. I think we're pretty clearly going naked May here, which really makes me want to go Ridley. We get the nice correlation with Mixon. And yeah, I see a ton of upside for Ridley. Obviously, he's a guy who could absolutely kill you. I think he's a tougher assessment for like redraft right now in a start sit type situation than he is for, DFS or battle royale tournaments where it's just like, look, he's got 30-point upside. He's seeing awesome volume and he's too cheap, clearly.
Yeah, no, it's surprising to me that his ADP is so low on Underdog, because he's projecting, he's cheap on the main slate, but he's projecting for a lot of ownership on the main slate. It's not like the industry is not on this Calvin Ridley thing. So yeah, I'm surprised he's falling through the cracks a little bit in this format.
Yeah, sorting by ADP, we have him with a pretty strong projection. He's our wide receiver 10 in terms of Underdog projections, wide receiver 19 by ADP. Certainly think guys like, Jaden Reed, Juwan Jennings carried, honestly, maybe even more risk than Ridley this week, just given their offensive situations. We know what we want to do for our last pick. So assuming we don't get sniped, we can get to a couple questions in the chat here. Always appreciate you guys asking these questions. Ryan, this is a question for you. Has Christian Watson taken over as the best wide receiver to play? I feel like I have a lot to say about this, but I know my boy Ryan Heath has even more to say than me, and probably more insightful analysis, given that he is the number one Christian Watson fan in the world, right? Confirmed?
I don't know if anything I'm about to say, I don't know if it's going to be insightful into anything other than like my own psyche. So this happens like a couple times a year at this point where Christian Watson will have a big game. And I said this in our projections meeting earlier today, but I feel like the entire internet kind of turns to look at me and says, "Oh, Ryan, are we touting Christian Watson now? Like, he just had a big game." Like say it's like the Simpsons meme, like say the line, Bart. Like that. Tout Christian Watson this week, Ryan. I'm not doing it. Number one, not a great matchup, right? The 49ers have been pretty good at limiting outside wide receivers. I still do not trust that Watson is going to be running a full-time route share in any given week. He's done it for like 2 or 3 weeks in a row. That does not mean that Dontavian Wicks can't come and run 45% of his routes like he has several times throughout this season. So yeah, I think I'm not buying the Watson stuff yet. I would have to, I don't even know what I would have to see to believe that Christian Watson is like legit at this point. I feel like I've completely like destroyed my mind in the opposite direction on Christian Watson at this point. So I think he'll have to be catching like 50-yard touchdowns like multiple weeks in a row to get me back on, probably.
For me, it would just take Green Bay to trot out way more consistent 11 personnel packages. They've just been all over the place in terms of their wide receiver rotation. So it is really hard to trust Watson. Like Ryan said, the route share is ticked up, but it's pretty easy to see, Dontavian Wicks has a good week of practice and you don't hear about it. And then all of a sudden he's out there for 45% of the routes, and Christian Watson is complete dust. So yeah, that's pretty tough. It is going to take a bit more for me to believe in the breakout as well. I think it's tough for all these Packers wide receivers. I was looking at just XFP per game over the last month. Basically, none of these guys are over 10 expected fantasy points per game over their last 4, which is really, really tough. But we did complete this team. Ended up with Drake May, Joe Mixon, Josh Jacobs, Tyreek Hill, Calvin Ridley, and Brock Bowers. I think this is a really strong team from a projection and upside standpoint. My least favorite play would probably be Jacobs. But again, it's easy to see Green Bay sort of rolling here now that we know Brock Purdy isn't starting for San Francisco. Jacobs also set season high marks in snap share and I believe target share as well last week. So might be in for a bit of an increased workload here. I will look for maybe a higher dollar entry contest. While I do that, this is actually a pretty good question. I think I know which way I lean, but someone asked Ryan, TJ Hawkinson or George Kittle PPR. I think I would lean towards Hawkinson given there's no Josh Oliver. What do you think there?
Yeah, no, I'm the same way. As you mentioned, if Trent Williams sits, then there's a potential for Kittle to run like a 45 or a 50% route share if they keep him in to block a lot. I'm not that excited about the offense or the game environment, and any more so than I am about like the Vikings game environment, as bad as that one's going to be. So yeah, give me Hawkinson over Kittle straight up in PPR.
Yeah, I think Hawkinson is pretty much locked into a notably higher route share than Kittle, and it should be in a better offense. We'll see where implied team totals shake out after the market sort of sits down on that. Let's see here. Still kind of playing around with drafts, seeing if I can get anything that's close to filling. Someone else asked Ryan, should I sit Debo for Will Dissly and Cade Otton? What are your thoughts on that? I think that would be obviously one of those questions that would have seemed completely ridiculous even a few weeks ago, but now is, it's certainly a debate. I would lean Otton over Debo. I don't think I'd lean Dissly over Debo. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I'm exactly with you on that. Dissly, it's just so hard. Like, he's not running anywhere close to a full-time route share yet. I don't even know what his targets per route run is over the last month. It's probably like 35% or something.
I mean,
ridiculous.
It might be 40, man. Like, it's absolutely insane. Like, you have this guy earning targets like he's prime Calvin Johnson. Like, it makes no sense. And every week I'm doing projections with Chris Wecht, and I've ended up on the Chargers a few times. And it's just like, man, I do not want to project Will Dissly for, a 0.3, a 0.33 target per route run rate, but you kind of have to at this point. I mean, he's earning targets at just an obscene clip. I don't really know if I see that maintaining, but he was a guy that dealt with a ton of injuries throughout his career. So, now that he's been able to string together some healthy starts, makes sense that maybe he's emerging a bit as a wide receiver. Ryan, what?
I was just going to say, this is the guy that like ruined Noah Fant for us for years, right?
Oh,
like,
yeah, that's true.
I don't know. Sorry, what were you going to say?
I was going to ask you what game environment you find yourself the most interested in this week. For me, I mean, obviously, Detroit, Indianapolis, I think has the most juice. Vegas reflects that. I think beyond that, New England, Miami, and Seattle, Arizona are the two game environments I'm the most excited about. What are your thoughts there? Do you have any particular angles on games to stack?
Yeah, no, I definitely the ones you mentioned, I am super in on. Beyond that, Tampa Bay and the Giants, I am pretty interested in. I don't think that the downgrade from Daniel Jones to Tommy DeVito is as big as Vegas or as big as people around the industry seem to think. I believe DeVito's yards per attempt was actually a little higher than Daniel Jones's was this season. They were fairly pass heavy in DeVito's starts last season. It was like a 64% pass rate, which is above where they've been this season. So I don't think that the Giants are just going to like pack it in and go home type of deal. I think they are going to try to win this game. The Buccaneers have been incredible at kind of coaxing production out of opposing passing games. One of the biggest pass funnels in the league. Just allowing a ton of schedule adjusted points to opposing quarterbacks, to opposing wide receivers. I love the game before the Malik Neighbors Friday groin injury, which is like the worst thing that's happened to me all day, was getting that notification.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, what a brutal year.
Even with that, like if we get Evans, I'm still pretty interested. I mean, it doesn't matter that much for BR. I don't think any of the Giants are really in play there.
Maybe Tracy, but outside of him, probably nobody. Ryan, I broke code. I hopped in a dog bowl draft. If you guys have listened to this show at all, I'm a bit of a dog bowl hater. The rake's too damn high, and I'm not that interested in the trip to Dallas. But you know what, Ryan? I was totally sober during cashing points. I've had half a glass of rosé. Now I'm feeling tipsy enough to enter a dog bowl draft. These are 12-man drafts, which is really fun. I wish there were way more 12-man drafts in the lobby, because I think 12-man drafts are way more fun than 6-man drafts. You get a lot deeper into the player pool. But yeah, let's play around with a dog bowl draft here. We drew the 101, which is pretty great. I think I want to go Achan. Would also be fine with Mixon here. Do you have a lean for the 101 in a higher dollar buy-in 12-man draft?
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking of it from like a stacks perspective. Like,
okay,
Mixon honestly gives you more access to sacks you might actually get in a 12-man. I don't know how into like Stroud you are, or not Stroud, I guess. Yeah. No, actually, you're right. Mixon doesn't work. Just take Achan. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Achan stacks end up being better because we have the bailout pick with May later on. I wouldn't hate a Tua stack. I doubt Tyreek comes back to us, but you could probably work Jonnu in there and get an okay double. So these are always generally pretty sharp lobbies. A lot of really great players play the Dog Bowl. Somebody mentioned that you are performing some Darius Slayton erasure. Ryan.
He was the next name out of my mouth before you interrupted me and started talking about how you got into a Dog Bowl draft, Jake. I was absolutely about to bring up Darius Slayton. I can't believe that you or the chat would doubt that I would bring up Darius Slayton.
Slayton is going to end up being a really, really strong play if Malik Neighbors sits here. So certainly a guy I would want some exposure to. Probably more of a DFS and 12-person draft takes. I don't really see myself getting there in 6-man drafts. If Malik Neighbors sits, I imagine you probably wouldn't either.
Yeah, no, agreed. I mean, like has had multiple games this season above a 30% first read target share with Malik Neighbors out. So yeah, the volume could certainly be there. Probably not the efficiency with Tommy DeVito, but on paper, it's a great matchup. Schematically, not as great. I know I had that as a note in advanced matchups. Or maybe I deleted that sentence. I can't remember. But it was it was a nuts matchup for Neighbors before we got that news today. So on paper, it certainly would transfer over to Slayton as well on the perimeter. So yeah, I like it. I like him. Definitely don't need to draft him in 6-man though.
Yeah, for sure. Guys, as always appreciate all these questions in chat while we're in between picks. Always happy to get to any pressing week 12 questions you guys may have. This is a very interesting week. It's felt like a very chaotic week, Ryan, given sort of the late breaking injury stuff that we've gotten with Purdy, with Neighbors, Trent Williams as well. I mean, really major pieces at play here. Next week, there won't be any buys because it's Thanksgiving. So we'll have 3 games on Thursday. There's also a Friday game, which I just found out about today. Absolutely crazy. And then the standard Sunday slate that not many people really pay that much attention to or throw that much volume at because they either lost it all on Thanksgiving or they're traveling. So that's always a fun one. Ryan, what's your favorite part of Thanksgiving week? Is it the football, the family? What is it?
I have like an interesting relationship with Thanksgiving football because I say interesting. Usually when I'm watching football, it's a very like serious experience, I would say. Like especially now, like I'm sitting at my desk, I'm watching the game on my screen. I'm focusing on that and on work. Maybe I'm writing something at the same time, but on Thanksgiving, man, like I don't know about anyone else. Me and my relatives get pretty tipsy pretty early in the day.
Oh yeah.
So
man.
It's like it. Yeah, I just have a harder time like focusing on football like I normally would in that environment. And yeah, I mean, I will obviously have action on the games on the Thanksgiving slate. I always prefer if my teams are dead after the first game so that I don't have to sweat out a Thanksgiving slate surrounded by relatives while very tipsy. That's never much fun. But yeah, I don't know. It's going to be actually this is going to be a weird Thanksgiving because all my relatives are going to be asking about my new job, and that'll be a whole a whole interesting thing I will have to be talking about the entire day. So
it'll be like the meme of the Wojak emerging from the attic, and then the family being like, "There's our little fantasy analyst."
Yes,
you're
exactly what I'm expecting.
Yeah. My Thanksgiving experience is similar. Certainly a lot of alcohol involved. And I don't think I've ever stayed awake through all 3 Thanksgiving games. I'd imagine that's true for a lot of people. The funniest part though, is like being with my family, I might tilt and be like, oh, can't believe CeeDee Lamb dropped that or whatever. Every time I say anything, my mom and my dad are both like, was that good for you? Was that bad for you? And it's like, look, we're we're halfway through the slate. I have no idea if that was that good or that bad for me. I play a ton of teams. Like, come on, guys, settle down a little bit. It'll all be okay at the end of the day. It'll all be fine. Ryan,
I'll start talking about like my best ball teams or whatever on Thanksgiving if I really feel like I need to like project strength to my relatives. Like, this is going well. I definitely have exposure to that player somewhere across all
Ryan,
of my action.
We are at the 2-3 turn here. Sorting by ADP, this is a bit of a tricky spot. Where do you think we should go? We could game stack Seattle, Arizona, maybe.
Yeah, that seems pretty strong, honestly. Just going like Kyler, Harrison.
Yeah, let's go Kyler, Marv. I really like that stack. I think especially in these 12-team drafts, it's so easy to get sniped. So I really like prioritizing the stack. And this is a bit of a smaller field contest, so we can jack up correlation a bit. I don't think any of these Seattle guys will come back to us. Yeah, DK Metcalf, JSN, already off the board. We could maybe go with like an AJ Barner for our last pick, but that feels really gross, and we probably don't need to do that. I think we're fine with the Kyler Murray single stack. I think Kyler is a really interesting quarterback to talk about this week. For one, he's had 3 of the top 10 games by a quarterback for both like real life and fantasy purposes that we've seen this year. I mean, he has had some incredible games this season. Problem is, Cardinals are really run heavy. Drew Petzig isn't necessarily a great pass game coordinator. He's, his run game has looked really strong. The pass game for the Cardinals, not a lot of exciting concepts there. I do see a ton of shootout potential with this game. What are your thoughts on Kyler this week?
Yeah, no, I think you put it best on Cashing Points. That was one of your best takes of the show, I thought. Was
thank you, Ryan. I appreciate that.
Yeah, the game has a very wide range of outcomes. Yeah. We've seen Kyler absolutely ball out at times, and we've also seen Arizona just pack it in and go extremely run heavy at times this season. They're bottom 5 in PROE. So if the Seahawks can push them, I get pretty excited. If they can, it could definitely be gross. But yeah, that, as you said, that's why I want most of my exposure to this game to be in correlated stacks as opposed to the one-offs.
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense. Really hard to accomplish in these 12-man drafts, especially with, DK Metcalf, JSN, and Marv, and Trey McBride, all sort of going in the same range. That makes it almost impossible to complete like a Kyler, Marv, JSN run back in a 12-man draft. In 6-mans, though, I think that has a lot of juice to it. Probably need to reach for one of those picks, but I certainly think that is okay this week. Tyler did say that he would love to be back and that he would hit me up. Really glad to see that. Tyler is one of the great follows on Twitter because that man will tweet a lot of crazy stuff, which I really appreciate. I really appreciate, Ryan, the people on Twitter who are true to themselves, tweet whatever comes to mind.
Who will just say it. I agree. Yeah. I agree. Yeah, I wish I could be like Tyler sometimes. I will not lie.
There are upsides and downsides to what Tyler's doing, but the upside is that Tyler has gained a lot of my respect. I really love Tyler's tweets. Always enjoy chopping it up with Tyler. Ryan, we are still 11 picks away here. We already have our stack. We got Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison. Really no chance to run that back, unfortunately, with all of the Seattle pieces off the board here. I am kind of curious where AJ Barner is going, but do you have any other maybe later round picks here as we get deep into a 12-man draft that would pop to you on this team?
Yeah, I mean, it's about figuring out running back, I think.
Yeah, our next running back pick is going to be tricky for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, probably Ramondre
is there, which would make it easy. But
yeah, I never love taking 2 running backs from the same game. I think in this case, it's okay, especially if we consider Ramondre just clearly the best play. And both of these guys have significant pass game involvement, so I don't think it's quite as negatively correlated as, maybe like a Jonathan Taylor and a Brian Robinson would be if they were facing off in the same game. That would have pretty significant negative correlation. I think Ramondre and Achane would be a bit more okay. After that, though, we see a pretty big drop-off in running back. And I've said before in these 12-team drafts that the position you don't want to get, left in the dust on is running back. Because once we get past, say, the Austin Eckler, Javonte Williams, Rashad White tier, then we're getting into some really gross stuff. We're looking at guys like Devin Singletary, Raheem Mostert, who's had 3 carries over his last 3 or 4 games. I know they've
all inside the 10-yard line though.
Yeah,
have
so
to
the
point that
touchdown
out.
equity is decent.
Yes.
Sione Vaki. I mean, Amir Abdullah would probably be like the optimal 6th round pick in one of these 12-man drafts. Ryan, we're coming up on the 4-5 turn here. I think either Chuba or Rashad would be our best bet. I'm curious what our projections say. What do you think? Maybe Javonte.
I was going to argue for Javonte, honestly.
Oh man, this is tricky. Trying to figure out where Chuba is. Yeah, so Chuba I think is our best projected option. There's also Swift. Yeah, Chuba would be the highest projection. About a 1.
He averages like 9 fantasy points per game in losses, though.
I know, but couldn't you see? I mean, the Chiefs just feel like a team that are going to want to make this game way closer than it should be, right? Like that's how they've been playing every game this year.
That's true.
And they love this guy in terms of overall usage. This will probably be the only exposure I'd get to him. I've talked myself into Chuba. I could see Javonte too. This is just a really tough spot. Let's go with Chuba.
There's no good answers there.
There really aren't. We can roll with Chuba there, and then at wide receiver, we could also look at tight end. Should we go Henry? We get a nice little correlation with Devon Achane there.
Yeah, we should absolutely go Henry. I don't feel any sort of way about any of those wide receivers. So
yeah. What are your thoughts on the Henry play overall? I think he's pretty clearly my favorite New England pass catching option in this game. Do you have anything to add on Henry? How are you sort of seeing these New England pass catchers play out?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's kind of the same analysis as last week where Henry kind of over the sample with Drake May has gotten the most volume in the red zone of any Patriots receiver. He's the one where we probably feel the best about his role. Like there's obviously some uncertainty with like a Kendrick Bourne, Demario Douglas. We know he's going to be running in the slot, but we also know that the upside to that role is not very good. That average at the target, not very good. Kayshon Boutte or Booty, or we litigated this morning how you pronounce that. I don't know, like watching him, I can see like concepts of a professional wide receiver. Like he can beat a guy in coverage. Like he is capable of that. Don't think he's very good in the contested situations. And I mean, that's on May a little bit for underthrowing him a decent amount, which I think is part of why he hasn't been producing on all the XFPs. Just the connection kind of hasn't been there with May. Like he won't go up and make the play by himself very often. So yeah, I mean, Henry is just like the least sketchy New England pass catcher to me is kind of what it comes down to.
Yeah, I totally get that. That is about where I fell as well. Someone in the chat asked, where has Kareem Hunt generally been going in these drafts? I said this sort of earlier on the stream. I ripped a ton of drafts before cashing points just to sort of get a feel for, rooms in general, but specifically Hunt. I was really curious as well. I think in like $3, $7 drafts, either main battle royales or wildcats, you can pretty consistently get Hunt in the 3rd or 4th round. His ADP is still 27, 28. Obviously that is climbing. I'd imagine by tomorrow afternoon, it's probably closer to 20 in terms of his ADP. We have him tentatively ranked right around 15. Again, you guys can get our rankings in the Fantasy Points Discord, Underdog Battle Royale channel, totally free. By the way, you can upload them straight into Underdog, just sort of a blend of Underdog ADP and our projections. In sharper draft rooms, though, I've seen Hunt go, in round 2. In this draft, it was a 12-man. He went right around pick 20, I believe, the 208. Yeah, Ryan, where do you think you see Hunt settling? I would imagine it's probably between an ADP of 16 and 18 and a half, something like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be that surprised if he goes even higher. But I guess it's true that like with the late breaking news, like they're not even that late breaking news. With like Friday news, I think the run up the board tends to be pretty slow. Yeah, especially in like the larger field, smaller buy-in stuff than it should be. Yeah, I've been able to get him pretty consistently in the 4th round, just drafting like hurry ups and wildcats today. So but yeah, I'd be totally fine with taking him kind of after that like top 4 wide receiver tier is off the board. I would take Hunt there as like the 8th or 9th overall or wherever that lines up. So and as far as that, I would be fine with going up. Not that I think you'll have to, but yeah.
Yeah, I think you might have to in some of the sharper rooms, like $2,500 draft rooms, but that won't be until Sunday morning. So, yeah, definitely if you want Hunt exposure, I would definitely try to get that in now. He is going to be mega popular in DFS. Ryan, we're coming up on our final pick here. So far, our draft is looking like Kyler Murray, Devon Achane, Chuba Hubbard, Marv, Hunter Henry. I think Juwan Jennings would pretty clearly be our best option, even with Brandon Allen starting. I would really like Jennings here. We'll probably jinx it. I don't know if he'll make it back to us. Everyone in front of us has 2 wide receivers, so that's a good sign, but obviously there are still some flex spots up in the air. Jacoby Myers would be another guy that I like. I know the matchup absolutely sucks. He actually projects a little bit better for us than Juwan does. Do you have anyone else we should be thinking about in this spot?
I mean, I don't know. It's a dog bowl. You want to finish top 3, right? Shouldn't we be just going like multi-touchdown upside? I don't know if Myers has that at all.
Yeah. Should we make this the Christian Watson team?
I was gonna say that. Wait, am I talking myself into Christian Watson right now?
I kind of love
like
it. I mean, Ryan, we're playing for first place.
It's true, we are.
I mean, 4th place in this contest is like basically nothing. Like, who cares? I want to go to Dallas. And I don't know if my girlfriend would want to go with me, Ryan. So you might get an invite as well.
Hell yeah.
It's you get a +1, which always makes those live finals fun. But yeah, let's go Christian Watson for the sake of Ryan's Twitter brand. End up here with a Kyler, Achane, Chuba, Marv, Hunter Henry, Christian Watson team. Really like that. I think we have time to rip one more. We can hop into a quick, I'll see if the fullback dive has anything close to filling. Nope. All right, we will hop into a quick Wildcat here, but we really appreciate all the questions, guys, all the chat interaction. Always makes this show a ton of fun. Love all of Tyler's comments here. Tyler will famously tweet anything. His account will never change, whether he has 30 followers or 3,000. And that's how you get the respect you crave, Tyler. Tyler also says, nice thing about Javonte is you'll know immediately if you're dead or alive. Yeah, that is for sure. We'll know by drive 2 whether or not Javonte was a sharp pick or a fish pick. Yeah, Tyler says we got to win so that we can meet up in Dallas. I would imagine Tyler probably lives in the Dallas area. Either that or he's already secured a dog bowl ticket, which would be very impressive. I've actually never been to Texas. I've traveled all over the United States. Have never been to Texas. What about you, Ryan?
I've also never been to Texas. What's the most obscure location you've traveled to in the United States, Jake?
That I've like spent a night in would probably be Laramie, Wyoming. I was visiting colleges with my dad, which was a great time. Like, we drove all around and visited a ton of schools, and it gave me a good perspective on where I wanted to go. And yeah, we checked out the University of Wyoming, which is like beautiful. And I think I would have had a much deeper appreciation for the University of Wyoming had I been into snowboarding at the time. I didn't learn how to snowboard until a few years later, but they have like incredible skiing and snowboarding out there. I think if I was as into snowboarding as I currently am, I would have given some very serious consideration to the University of Wyoming. But Laramie's just, I mean, it's out in the middle of nowhere, man. So I wasn't ready to do it. It's also only a town of about 20,000 or so, 30,000. So it's not particularly big. Ryan, before I ask you where the most obscure place you've been to, we got a couple picks we got to make. I'm thinking Amon-Ra here. I haven't grabbed much Goff. I don't really hate like a Goff or a Lions super stack where we just grab, maybe Amon-Ra and Gibbs and Goff later on. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't hate it. I think I kind of just preferred taking Richardson on any team with Amon-Ra.
Yeah. That was another suggestion I was going to throw out is maybe we could draft Amon-Ra Gibbs or Amon-Ra Monty and then go with Anthony Richardson. I mean, if this game shoots out, it's pretty easy to see Richardson outscoring Goff in a lot of different scenarios.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
you'd have to take Monty here if you want to do that, most likely, because his ADP is absolutely out of control.
Okay, yeah, his ADP is out of
unbelievable
control, but
me.
let's get a little exposure. I hate the idea of passing up Jettas and Tyreek Hill for Monty, but for the sake of this build, let's do it. Sometimes you do have to pass up on some solid options to get some stacks that you like.
Someone's going to take Richardson now. It's going to be.
Oh my gosh, that would be absolutely brutal. Oh no, wait! Tyler is a dog bowl ticket winners +1. Way to be, Tyler. Way to get in there. That's how you do it. Is you don't want to risk any of your own money on these qualifiers because it's absolutely brutal. Variance is terrible. You're probably going to get killed. You just want to be friends with people who are really good at playing these things, and then you'll get some invites. That's a sneaky strategy that I think a lot of players do not talk about or appreciate nearly enough.
Definitely more plus EV than grounding the dog balls.
Oh my gosh, that is
like that.
That is for sure. I would just try to befriend all the strong players. Let's see, where's Goff going? So he's got an ADP of 31, so we can certainly wait on our Goff pick. We know we can wait on AR if that's who we want to. We could get a little bit more like mini correlation here with a Metcalf and a McBride, which I would be pretty interested in. The concern would just be that we would lose out on one of those guys when it comes back around to us. What do you think?
Yeah, no, what's the concern with that? That we lose
just
out
that we wouldn't get one of those guys, but I mean, obviously we could make up for it pretty easily.
Yeah, I think that's fine. And so take Metcalf first, and then you could do Connor if you're married to the mini correlation, even if McBride gets sniped. I don't love true. Connor as a play.
Yeah, Connor's a tough one to decipher. Where I mean, his pass game involvement has been great, like basically career high pass game involvement, from what I understand. Trey Benson though stole 10 carries before the bye, and it's kind of easy to see the coaches saying, "Oh, Trey Benson, I think he averaged 6.2 yards per carry in that game that he had 10 carries." The coaches might watch that film and say, "Hey, we need to give Trey Benson a bit more work on the ground," and that really does kill a lot of Connor's upside. Granted, I still think he'd get the inside the 10, inside the 5 work, but it really muddies the waters here on the Connor situation.
Yeah, and Coach Speak Index had an excellent tweet before the bye that has been buried now that no one remembers. Shout out Coach Speak Index, best.
That guy rocks.
Incredible stuff. But basically, he was just laying out all of Gannon's and Petzig's quotes about Trey Benson since like September, and you could see it just get more and more and more and more positive, like as the weeks went on. As his involvement in the offense went from literally 0 to we'll give him a few touches when Connor's like stretching out on the sideline or when it's like a 3-score garbage time to, now he's actually a part of the offense, like in competitive game environments. We're actually mixing him in as a actual part of the game plan. And now they're just all over him and are very happy with how he's been performing. So yeah, I think it continues. I think it's real. I don't think it was random. And it hurts Connor. Maybe you would say it doesn't hurt Connor's ceiling as much. This is a great matchup, to be clear. So absent Trey Benson, I'd have been very excited to play Connor this week. So maybe he just breaks off the long runs anyways, and it works out. But I never want to be banking on long runs from James Conner. As good as he's played this year, it just doesn't feel like a winning strategy.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think I'm going to go AR over Goff. I already have a ton of AR, but I like him a lot more as a play relative to Goff. I think especially if we had gotten Gibbs on this team, I think I would have leaned Goff here, especially with Monty, given that he can really cannibalize the touchdowns. Like I said, about 75% of inside the 5, inside the 10 work over the last 5 or so games for David Montgomery. That makes me lean toward this being a Richardson build. Just got to figure out our last pick here. So far, we have AR, Monty, Amon-Ra, DK, Trey McBride. A lot of great correlation on this team. Probably want to round it out with one more running back. I think we'll get B-Rob here. That would be pretty great, I think. I really love this spot for B-Rob, 16 of 21, backfield carries last week. Obviously, this Dallas defense has been a complete disaster. I believe they've allowed second most rushing yards per game, most rushing touchdowns. So yeah, this feels like a really strong spot for Brian Robinson. And this feels like a unique build overall. I mean, we did reach a bit for Monty. I don't think we need to scroll down. What do you think here?
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, because you're not getting B-Rob this late very often, so that helps as well. I can't imagine Monty Amon-Ra plus AR is going to be a common way to build him. So I think this works great.
Yeah, I think that's a great team. AR, Monty, B-Rob, Amon-Ra St. Brown, DK Metcalf, and Trey McBride. I think that is a great way to wrap up the show here. Ryan, before we get out of here, why don't you shout out some of the great work you're doing at FantasyPoints.com? Ryan, for those who don't know, became full-time in the fantasy industry, around week 5? So you got
sometime around.
Got a little over a month under your belt. How are you feeling about things, and where can people find your stuff?
Yeah, I'm feeling great every day. I wake up and I can't believe this is my life now. It's still it's still pretty awesome. It has not gotten old. But yeah, you can check out all my content on FantasyPoints.com. Advanced matchups released earlier this morning on Friday morning. Just tons and tons and tons of schematic notes on basically every single relevant play on the main slate is what it feels like, is how broad I make it. Maybe including some plays that aren't relevant on the main slate even. So yeah, just tons of info. Honestly, just go in there and Control F the player that you're interested in. You'll probably find an interesting schematic note on him one way or the other. So advanced matchups. Go read it. Go check it out.
Yep. Just like Ryan, you can find all of my stuff over on FantasyPoints.com. Kevin asked one last buzzer-beating question before we get out of here, Ryan, and I think it's a pretty easy one. Juwan Jennings or Calvin Ridley? You're going to be dealing with a lot of variance with Ridley, but I would still pretty clearly lean Ridley at that point. A lot of offensive question marks for San Francisco. I think especially if Trent Williams is out, all of these guys are going to take a pretty major efficiency hit. Do you have anything to add to that, Ryan?
Yeah, give me Ridley. Texans are big outside funnel, big deep funnel. So just plays to what he's been doing. His utilization's been awesome. His only recent down game was against the Vikings, which was like a stone worst schematic matchup for him. This is a significantly better one. So yeah, give me Ridley very easily. Yep.
Love that. Really appreciate all the questions, guys, all the comments, especially from Tyler. Shout out Tyler. We will get him on the show soon. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to the week 12 edition of the Underdog Drafter Party. I came close to saying UFL breakdown. My spring football background almost kicked in there, but we really appreciate it, everybody, and we will see you all at the top of the leaderboards. What?
Why are you shaking your head? You're welcome.